Hi, welcome. Join me in the kitchen as I cook up a couple of recipes. I'm doing a tasty pasta dish with a no-cook sauce and a simple zucchini risotto recipe, and I'm cooking it in the Instant Pot, so it's very hands-off. Let's get started. Hi, I'm Amy. I'm really excited to make dinner here with you. I'm making a cherry tomato pasta. I have some basil from my little herb garden, which mostly just has basil now. I had a couple more herbs, but they've died since I planted them. And I have some cherry tomatoes. These are from the store. We don't have any tomatoes growing from our garden yet. We have a very small backyard garden. But I'm really excited to share this recipe. If you're new, I'm Amy, and I'm a wife and a mom, and I love to share what I'm cooking for my family. I'm gonna marinate these cherry tomatoes, slice up the basil, add a couple of other things, cook pasta, and it looks like a really easy, simple summer dinner. I'm just gonna take all of these tomatoes off the vine. I've made an Ina Garten recipe that is kind of similar to this, where it's like a no-cook tomato sauce, where it's a sun sauce basically. So I will look at that recipe and see how similar it is to this recipe, and hopefully I'll remember to include that information at the end of this video, and I'll let you know what I think the differences are. I'm trying to decide how to navigate the onion part. My kids won't eat raw onion. I do have this diced onion that I diced a couple days ago, and the recipe originally calls for a shallot. I don't have any shallot. So I think what I'll do is just quickly microwave this. I'll put like a towel on top and microwave it, and that way it's not raw, and hopefully my kids will like it that way. To get started on this cherry tomato marinade, I'm gonna juice up a whole lemon, put it in a big bowl, and then we'll get started dicing up the tomatoes. Next, I'm gonna go ahead and cut up the tomatoes. It says to halve or quarter them. I think I'll have the little ones. These ones are pretty small, but I do have some bigger, I think these are grape tomatoes, and I'm gonna go ahead and quarter these. That way they'll all be like pretty similar in size. I don't know if you could see that. Let's get these tomatoes in this bowl. Some of these tomatoes were so unbelievably juicy. Let's dry off the cutting board from all of that tomato juice. And then I'm gonna take all the basil off the stem. Okay, we're gonna slice up this basil, and then I'm also going to use some already dried basil as well. I just got the onions out of the microwave. They've been sitting in there for a couple minutes. Here are all of the seasonings I'm gonna add, and I'm gonna add the onions. They are translucent, so they're basically cooked now. I cooked them in the microwave. Now we're gonna season this up. I am making some changes. I didn't wanna pick enough fresh basil to put all fresh basil in here, and I also forgot to buy fresh garlic, like a garlic bulb. So I'm just gonna use some ground garlic, just what I have. And then I also have this dried basil. It's from my parents' garden. So I'm just gonna take some of that and put some in here as well. I just like to crush it up a little bit more. Put that on there. And then I'm gonna do salt and pepper and olive oil. There's the salt, pepper, and olive oil. I'm gonna do 3/4 of a cup of olive oil. And the recipe also calls for chili flakes, red chili flakes, but I'm not gonna add any of those. My little kids would not like that, so I'm just gonna leave it out. So this is 3/4 of a cup of olive oil. If you want a little heat, add chili flakes. I think that will be really good in here. I just want my kids to like it. So now we're just gonna give this a good stir. It looks nice and fresh. I'm gonna go ahead and set this aside until dinner time. And right now I am also gonna prep some cauliflower. We'll have that with our dinner as well. I'm taking a really easy dinner and making it slightly more complicated, but not really. I'm gonna roast up some cauliflower to go along with that. And I'm really excited to try the cherry tomato pasta recipe. I think especially when my tomatoes come out of the garden. Oh, it's gonna be so good. It's a little early here for tomatoes, but I think they're gonna be coming along pretty soon. We have our first one, in the garden that's starting to get red. So I'm very excited about that. But I'm not going to cook this in my oven. I have a countertop oven that I'm going to go ahead and roast this cauliflower in. And I'm going to just season it very simply with salt, pepper, and garlic. I like to just add the salt and then I'll roast it for a little bit and then I'll add the garlic and the pepper. That way the pepper and the garlic don't burn. I've heard that if you roast pepper or if you like bake pepper, sometimes they can get a little bit bitter. So I don't know if that's true. I don't know if you've experienced that, but just as a way to avoid that, I'm just going to kind of put that in last. And garlic can also burn. So the cherry tomatoes are over there marinating. I'm going to start cooking the pasta in about 20 minutes. The recipe says you can marinate the cherry tomatoes for about 20 minutes. So I'm going to probably marinate them for more like maybe 40 minutes, but I think that'll be just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and get all the rest of this cauliflower chopped up. I like fairly small pieces, kind of like small to medium, and I'm trying to do them all a similar size, but I'm going to get them in a pan. I envisioned that going a little bit smoother. I got a little cauliflower on the floor, a few pieces on the counter, but there's too much for one pan, so I'm going to go ahead and split it in two. I want a little space, that way they can kind of get crispy. I like to squish everything together to season it. That way I don't have to kind of season the parchment paper. Hopefully I'm just mostly getting the oil and the salt on the actual cauliflower. I saw that trick on Acre Homestead, the YouTube channel, but I'm going to go ahead and generously salt it, get it all coated, and into the toaster oven. I am going to let it sit for about 15 minutes until I get the pasta going, and then I'll start the toaster oven. Here are the other 3 ingredients I need for this pasta besides for that cherry tomato marinade. Pasta, I'm using capellini, Parmesan, and parsley. You could use fresh parsley if you have that. I don't have that, so I'm going to use that. It's dinner time. I'm going to get the pasta in the boiling water, start that cauliflower cooking. Also, I did look up Ina Garten's recipe, and it's called Summer Garden Pasta, and it's similar to the recipe I'm making now with this kind of no-cook tomato sauce, except for the recipe I'm making now does have a lemon juice and shallot, and it also only has to marinate for 30 minutes, whereas Ina Garten's recipe is supposed to marinate for 4 hours. Anyway, they're both tasty. I loved this recipe and it was simple. I like the shallot edition, but they're both good. I will link both of them below. But I went ahead, added the hot pasta to that sauce, mixed it all together. I added Parmesan. I will say it would have been a lot easier to mix if I'd used a larger bowl and something different to mix it in, like maybe tongs. I think that would have been so much better, because some of the tomatoes did stay to the bottom and it was hard to mix it all in the way that I stirred it. But we all loved it. A super easy summer recipe. I'll definitely make it again. Also, just to let you know, this is my kids' plate, not mine. Here's everything that I have to chop and prep for this recipe. I'm using 4 zucchini because these are really tiny zucchini. I don't know if you can tell how small those are, but they're really small. 2 shallots and a lemon. I'll save the lemon for after the dish is cooked and put it in at the end. Now I'm making zucchini risotto. This recipe is easy and delicious. My kids loved it. My husband and I loved it. I've actually made it again since I made this recipe for the video. But my older daughter doesn't love vegetables and she really liked this. So it's simple. I'm just going to grate some zucchini. I also peel it because that's how I prefer it, but you don't have to peel it if you don't care about the peel on your zucchini. I'm going to go ahead and dice up some shallots. The one change I did make to this recipe, and it's kind of a big change, is I cooked it in the Instant Pot. The original recipe said to cook it on the stove and then put it in the oven to bake it for a while, and I just wanted something quicker and easier, so I used the Instant Pot, and I sauteed it first, and then I cooked it on high pressure for 5 minutes. So first I put olive oil in the Instant Pot, cooked the shallots for a few minutes. I just wanted them to soften a little bit. And then I added the risotto, and I just cooked that for a couple more minutes just to kind of toast it a little bit. I'm not actually sure if it makes a difference, but most of the risotto recipes I've seen, you kind of toast up the risotto so it gets a little bit of color and flavor before you add the liquid. So that's what I did. I just put it in with the shallot and olive oil, just mixed it for just a minute or two. And then I added in this better than bouillon just for a little flavor. The recipe said you could use better than bouillon and water or chicken broth. And I just used a container of chicken broth, which was 4 cups, and just a little bit of the veggie better than bouillon just for additional flavor. I thought, why not? So after the broth, I'm adding in the shredded zucchini, and then I'm just going to go ahead and cover it. And like I said, I just cook it for 5 minutes. It does take probably 10 or 15 minutes for it to come to pressure. Cooks for 5 minutes, and then I just release the steam. You can't go wrong with the Instant Pot when you find a good recipe for it because it's just so hands off and it's nice. You can do your dishes, you can sit and relax, you can hang out with your kids, you can do whatever you need to do. So once I go ahead and release that steam, I will add a couple of more things just to give it more flavor. But it does have a lot of flavor, even though there's not a ton of things in here. I always slightly alter recipes just based on my preference or what I think sounds good for my family, but I am going to put 2 tablespoons of butter in here. I did add olive oil to saute the shallot, so I thought 2 tablespoons would be good. I also added lemon zest, which wasn't in the recipe, but it adds that nice, bright, strong lemon flavor, which I thought would be great. And I also juiced up an entire lemon too. I do have a lemon juicer, but sometimes I just don't feel like dirtying it. So today I just went ahead, squeezed the lemon juice in there, and I just pulled out any seeds that fell in there, and it worked out totally fine. Fresh basil would be great in here. I didn't have any fresh basil. And I also add a lot of Parmesan. I added a little bit more than a cup. And a cup is what the recipe called for. But anyway, I did go ahead and clean up while I was waiting. I did all this while the Instant Pot was cooking the risotto. So I went ahead, cleaned up, put the dishes away so that way after dinner it would be super easy to clean up. But that's it. This recipe came out amazing. I've already made it again, like I said, and I'll keep making it again, especially when zucchini is in season. It's super cheap when it's in season. So we loved it. It would be great to pair with, like, if you could put chicken sausage on the side or just, sauteed chicken breast or anything like that. Even meatballs, I think, would be really good with this if you want some extra protein. But it's super creamy, cheesy, lemony, and I personally can't tell the zucchini is in there. It doesn't change the texture or add any flavor, but of course it adds, the nutrients of a zucchini. But anyway, we love it. I hope you enjoyed these recipes. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.